Good morning, children. This is T. Dube. Today we are going to begin the second chapter, Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom. But before I begin the detailed discussion of the chapter, I would like to give a brief note on Mandela and his autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom, by Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. So please take out your notebook and write down the notes. Nelson Mandela was born on July 18, 1918 and died on 5th December 2013 at the age of 95. He was a nationalist and the first black president of South Africa from 1994 to 1999. In the early 1990s, Mandela successfully negotiated with the then white president of South Africa, F.W. de Klerk, to help end the country's apartheid system. Mandela and de Klerk were jointly awarded with the Nobel Prize for Peace in 1993 for their efforts. Now, let us know something about his autobiography from which this chapter has been taken. Listen to me carefully. Long Walk to Freedom is Mandela's autobiography. It was published in the year 1994. The book describes his early life, coming of age, his education, and 27 years in prison. When the system of apartheid was existing in South Africa, Mandela was regarded as a terrorist. He fought against that evil political system and later achieved international recognition for his leadership as president in rebuilding the country. Now, after this brief note, let us discuss the points given on this page in detail, and then we will move forward to the discussion of the chapter. Let us discuss these points given under the title before you read, before we begin the discussion on the chapter. Look at the first point. Apartheid is a political system that separates people according to their race. Can you say which of the three countries named below had such a political system until very recently? These countries are United States of America, South Africa, Australia. So obviously I do believe that you must have understood the answer is South Africa. Now look at point number 2. Have you heard of Nelson Mandela? Mandela and his African National Congress spent a lifetime fighting against apartheid. Mandela had to spend 30 years in prison. Finally, democratic elections were held in South Africa in 1994, and Mandela became the first black president of a new nation. So from these 2 points, you must have understood that apartheid is a political system that separates people according to their race. That means the white considered themselves to be superior to the black people. So this was the political system against which Nelson Mandela fought for a long time. And in the second paragraph, we come to know that Nelson Mandela's party, African National Congress, has spent a lifetime in fighting against, in struggling against that evil political system. And finally, after a very long period of time, a democratic, free and fair election was held in the year 1994, in which the African National Congress emerged victorious, and then subsequently Nelson Mandela became the first black president of that country. Now look at the last part of this point. In this extract from his autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom, Mandela speaks about a historic occasion, the inauguration. Can you guess what the occasion might be? Check your guess with this news item from the BBC of 10th May 1994. So the extract that we are going to study in your chapter is taken from his book Long Walk to Freedom. And in this chapter, Mandela is talking about a historic occasion, a very important event, a very important time, day. So can you guess what that occasion might be, what that time might be? And that occasion is the inauguration. So I'm giving you a hint. You try to understand with the help of that hint. Whenever in our country a political party wins an election, the leader of that political party becomes prime minister or chief minister. But before taking on before beginning or starting the responsibility, that person takes oath of office. That person's swearing in ceremony is held. So that day, that time, that occasion is called inauguration. In simple language, when a leader takes the oath of office, means the oath of becoming prime minister and abide by the rules of that land, that occasion is called inauguration. So let us see a report prepared by BBC in which it writes something about Mandela. So before we begin the discussion of the chapter, let us see what BBC wrote about Nelson Mandela. Look at the title of the report. Mandela becomes South Africa's first black president. And then look at the 3 paragraphs given under this title. Nelson Mandela has become South Africa's first black president after more than 3 centuries of white rule. Mr. Mandela's African National Congress ANC party won 252 of the 400 seats in the first democratic elections of South Africa's history. The inauguration ceremony took place in the Union Buildings Amphitheatre in Pretoria today, attended by politicians and dignitaries from more than 140 countries around the world. Never again will this beautiful land experience the oppression of one by another, said Nelson Mandela in his address. Jubilant scenes on the streets of Pretoria followed the ceremony with blacks, whites, and coloreds celebrating together. More than 100,000 South African men, women, and children of all races sang and danced with joy. So, in this report prepared by BBC on Nelson Mandela, tells you that Nelson Mandela has become South Africa's first black president, which is reported on 10th May 1994. And he became the first black president after his party, African National Congress, won 252 seats out of 400 seats. And after that, after winning elections, his swearing-in ceremony, his oath-taking ceremony, called the inauguration ceremony, took place in the Union Buildings Amphitheatre in Pretoria. So in that building, you can imagine, you can understand by making a mental picture of the Red Fort in our country, right? So like Red Fort, there is a building in Pretoria, one of the capital cities of South Africa, in which this oath-taking ceremony or swearing ceremony was conducted or took place. And in the last paragraph, we can see jubilant scenes on the streets of Pretoria followed the ceremony with blacks, whites, and coloreds celebrating together. So after Nelson Mandela became the first black president of South Africa, we saw that people of all races, all colors, whether they were blacks and whites and coloreds, were celebrating his victory. So this is the occasion that we are going to see in this chapter. So let us move to the paragraph-wise discussion of this chapter, Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom. Before we begin the discussion of the chapter, let us do this simple activity. In column A, some expressions are given and their meanings are given in column B. Let us match them. Look at the first expression, a rainbow gathering of different colors and nations. So you can understand it with the hint that I'm giving you. When Nelson Mandela was taking the oath of his office, people of different colors, people of different races were coming together like colors in a rainbow to attend that ceremony. Find its meaning in column B. Now look at expression number 2, the seat of white supremacy. So you can understand this expression in this way. The place, the center, the building from where the white people used to rule, making the laws in their favor, showing their superiority. In other words, you can say a center of white supremacy. Now look at expression number 3, be overwhelmed with a sense of history. So you can understand the meaning of this expression with 3 last words. Sense of history. So when Nelson Mandela was struggling, fighting against the political system, apartheid, and finally he won the battle, he remembered all the patriots, all the heroes of his country that had fought the freedom. Look at the 4th expression, resilience that defies the imagination. In simple language, you can say the word resilience can mean fighting spirit. And the next part, that defies the imagination. That means unbelievable fighting spirit. So you can find its meaning. You can look at the meaning of this expression, in column B. Now, the 5th expression, we often hear, expressions like a glimmer of humanity or a glimmer of hope. So what does it mean? So it gives some indication, even faint indication, that something positive is going to happen. So a glimmer of hope, that means a hint or an indication that a person is going to be kind or sympathetic or have the human quality. The last expression is a twilight existence. So twilight is, the time, the light which seems to be either getting extinguished or put off, and then it may rise again. It means a kind of life which is neither hidden nor known. It's in between. So with the help of the hints that I have provided, take a pencil and complete this activity, and then let's move on to the discussion part. Now open your book at page number 17 and let us begin the discussion of the chapter in detail. Look at the screen, please. 10th May dawned bright and clear. For the past few days, I had been pleasantly besieged by dignitaries and world leaders who were coming to pay their respects before the inauguration. The inauguration would be the largest gathering ever of international leaders on South African soil. The ceremonies took place in the lovely sandstone amphitheater formed by the Union buildings in Pretoria. For decades, this had been the seat of white supremacy, and now it was the site of a rainbow gathering of different colors and nations for the installation of South Africa's first democratic non-racial government. On that lovely autumn day, I was accompanied by my daughter Zinani. On the podium, Mr. De Klerk was first sworn in as second deputy president. Then Thabo Mbeki was sworn in. Then Thabo Mbeki was sworn in as first deputy president. When it was my turn, I pledged to obey and uphold the Constitution and to devote myself to the well-being of the Republic and its people. To the assembled guests and the watching world, I said, now look at Mandela's inaugural speech. Today, all of us do by our presence here confer glory and hope to newborn liberty. Out of the experience of an extraordinary human disaster that lasted too long must be born a society of which all humanity will be proud. We, who were outlaws not so long ago, have today been given the rare privilege to be the host to the nations of the world on our own soil. We thank all of our distinguished international guests for having come to take possession with the people of our country of what is, after all, a common victory for justice, for peace, for human dignity. We have at last achieved our political emancipation. We pledge ourselves to liberate all our people from the continuing bondage of poverty, deprivation, suffering, gender, and other discrimination. Never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land again experience the oppression of one by another. The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement. Let freedom reign. God bless Africa. Now, let us understand each paragraph in detail. Listen. Look at this image of Nelson Mandela. As you can see in the image, he is being administered the oath of office. And you can very well remember the date on which he became the first black president of South Africa. It was 10th May 1994. Now open your book at page number 17 and listen to the explanation of each paragraph carefully. At the end of the explanation, you will be given some questions that should be answered by you orally. So, look at the first paragraph at page number 17. In this paragraph, Nelson Mandela writes that 10th May began like a new morning, a fresh one. It was bright and clear because it marked the end of the governance based on racial discrimination and began a new day after a long struggle to freedom. He was happily surrounded by famous personalities, public figures like presidents, prime ministers, governors, and other notable and renowned figures from all across the world. They were coming to congratulate him on his victory. They were visiting him before his swearing-in ceremony to express their best wishes, their compliments for the special occasion. Mandela further writes that the inauguration was not going to be a simple affair. It was going to be a big event, a special occasion, a ceremony which would be attended by thousands of international personalities from all over the world, as we have seen in the BBC report as well, that more than 100,000 people attended his inauguration. Now, on the basis of your listening, answer some questions and listen to the questions carefully. You can also write these questions on your notebook. Question number 1. In what way was the 10th May bright and clear? Question number 2. Why were important world leaders visiting Mandela before the inauguration? Question number 3. Which word in the paragraph can substitute the group of words? The formal act of placing somebody in an official position, especially a president or prime minister. Now, let us move to the explanation of the next paragraph. Look at this image. This is the image of the Union buildings in Pretoria. Nelson Mandela's swearing-in ceremony or inauguration was conducted in this semicircular area of this building. Now, look at the second paragraph of your book at page number 17 and listen to the explanation carefully. In this paragraph, Mandela writes that the inauguration ceremony was conducted in the lovely sandstone amphitheater formed by the Union buildings in Pretoria, one of the three capital cities of South Africa. Actually, South Africa has three capital cities: Pretoria, Bloemfontein, and Cape Town. And for decades, or for a long time, the Union buildings in Pretoria had been the seat of white supremacy, or you can say the place from where they had ruled South Africa. And this was the place from where they created apartheid, or the policy of racial discrimination. So for a long time, these Union buildings in Pretoria had been the center of white supremacy, the seat of white supremacy, and Mandela further writes that this place, this seat, which had been the seat of white supremacy, the same place was now the site of a rainbow gathering of different colors and nations. Or you can say it was a place of coming together of peoples of various races, different nations, different countries, like the colors in a rainbow. Now, on the basis of your listening, answer the coming questions. Write down important questions from this paragraph. Question number 1. Where did the inauguration ceremony take place? Question number 2. What does the expression "the seat of white supremacy" mean? And question number 3. What does the expression "a rainbow gathering of different colors and nations" mean? Now let us move to the explanation of the third paragraph. Now look at these two images. In the first image from the left, Nelson Mandela is standing with his daughter, Princess Zinani. And in the second image, starting from left to right, the first man is Thabo Mbeki, who became the first deputy president, and Nelson Mandela became the first black president, and the white man that you can see is De Klerk, and he became the second deputy president. Now you look at paragraph number 3 at page number 17 of your book and listen to the explanation of that paragraph carefully. The explanation will be followed by 3 important questions which can be answered by you correctly on the basis of your listening skill. So listen to it. So in this paragraph, Nelson Mandela writes that on that lovely autumn day, so here lovely autumn day means the day of his inauguration, the day on which South Africa became free from the white rulers. I was accompanied means I was together with, or I was along with, or I was present with my daughter Zinani on the podium. Podium means dais or stage or platform, you can say. Mr. De Klerk was present, was first sworn in as second deputy president. Then Thabo Mbeki was sworn in as first deputy president. And when it was my turn, that means when it was my chance, or when it was my opportunity, I pledged. Pledged means you can say took oath, or vowed, or promised, or you can say guaranteed to obey and uphold. Uphold, you can say, means maintain or obey or abide by the rule, and to devote myself to the well-being of the republic and its people. To the assembled, you can say, attending or the guests who were present. To the assembled guests and the watching world, I said. So what he said is given in the speech, but before we move to the speech, write down the 3 questions from this paragraph and answer them orally. The first question is, why did Mandela refer to 10th May as a lovely autumn day? Question number 2. Who were present with Mandela on the dais? And question number 3. What did Mandela vow to do? If you recall the first question, so for us, this is a very important question. Why did Mandela refer to 10th May as a lovely autumn day? You can say that Mandela referred to 10th May as a lovely autumn day because it was an auspicious day on which Nelson Mandela took the oath as the first black president of South Africa. Further, the day marked as the establishment day of South African democracy and the abolition of apartheid system. So you can answer all the questions like this. Now let us move to next paragraph. Look at this image of Nelson Mandela. In this image, you can see him delivering his speech on Inauguration Day. Now, you look at page number 18 of your book and let us understand the meaning of his Inauguration Day speech. Listen to the explanation carefully. In his speech, Mandela speaks that today, all of us do by our presence here confer glory and hope to newborn liberty. So you can underline the part confer glory and hope to newborn liberty. So this expression confer glory, that means we honor, we respect the glory or the splendor of South Africa's independence and give hope give hope for a new beginning out of the experience of an extraordinary human disaster, which means suffering from the cruel, harsh or unjust despotic rule of the white that lasted too long. South Africa must create a society of which entire human race will feel proud. So he is referring to we means the people of South Africa who were outlaws. Outlaws means criminals or fugitives, or you can say outcasts, or in other words also you can say terrorists. Not so long ago have today been given the rare privilege. Rare privilege means rare honor, rare pleasure, rare proud moment. So here Nelson Mandela is referring to, becoming the real ruler of South Africa. To be host to the nations of the world on our own soil. We thank all of our distinguished international guests. Means distinguished means well-known or renowned or great or prominent, celebrated people from different parts of the world for having to come take possession with the people of our country of what is, after all, a common victory for justice, for peace, for human dignity. So Mandela says that this victory, this political emancipation of South Africa from the white rulers is not an individual's victory. It is a common victory for justice, for peace, and for human dignity. In the next paragraph, he writes that we at last achieved our political emancipation. Political emancipation means political freedom from the white rulers. Means on 10th May 1994, after Nelson Mandela became the first black president of South Africa. So it was the political freedom, liberty of South Africa from the foreign rulers. We pledge ourselves. Pledge ourselves means we swear, we promise to liberate all our people. Liberate means to free all our people from the continuing bondage. Bondage means captivity or slavery of poverty. Deprivation. Deprivation means hardship or beggary or financial distress, suffering, gender and other discrimination. Discrimination means biases or prejudices or narrow-mindedness. The last two sentences are very powerful when he says that Never and never, never and never again shall it be that this beautiful land refers to the soil of South Africa, will again experience the oppression, what can you say, harassment or persecution or tyranny of one by another. The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement. So this expression, so glorious a human achievement, you can underline this part, and its meaning is South Africa's liberty, South Africa's freedom. So this so glorious a human achievement refers to political emancipation of South Africa. And then he says, let freedom reign. God bless Africa. So in this way, Nelson Mandela delivered a very, what you can say, impressive, very influencing speech on his inauguration. And now let us move to the questions from this paragraph. Question number 1. Write down the question and then answer them. What was the extraordinary human disaster mentioned by Nelson Mandela at the beginning of his speech? For example, you can say, I am giving you answer to this question. Rest of the questions should be answered by you in the same way. The extraordinary human disaster that Mandela mentioned at the beginning of his speech refers to the inhuman practice of apartheid, or the racial discrimination suffered by the blacks at the hands of whites in South Africa. Now, listen to the second question. Write down these questions on your notebook and answer properly. What does Mandela thank the international leaders for? Question number 3. What did Mandela vow to liberate his people from? Question number 4. How were people of South Africa criminals or outlaws before 10th May? So read the paragraph, listen to the explanation, and then answer all the questions properly. And let us move to the next. A few moments later, we all lifted our eyes in awe as a spectacular array of South African jets, helicopters, and troop carriers roared in perfect formation over the Union buildings. It was not only a display of pinpoint precision and military force, but a demonstration of the military's loyalty to democracy, to a new government that had been freely and fairly elected. Only moments before, the highest generals of the South African Defence Force and Police, their chests bedecked with ribbons and medals from days gone by, saluted me and pledged their loyalty. I was not unmindful of the fact that not only many years before they would not have saluted but arrested me. Finally, a chevron of Impala jets left a smoke trail of the black, red, green, blue, and gold of the new South African flag. On the day of the inauguration, I was overwhelmed with a sense of history. In the first decade of the 20th century, a few years after the bitter Anglo-Boer War and before my own birth, the white-skinned peoples of South Africa patched up their differences and erected a system of racial domination against the dark-skinned peoples of their own land. The structure they created formed the basis of one of the harshest, most inhuman societies the world has ever known. Now, in the last decade of the 20th century, and my own 8th decade as a man, that system had been overturned forever and replaced by one that recognized the rights and freedoms of all peoples, regardless of the color of their skin. That day had come about through the unimaginable sacrifices of thousands of my people, people whose suffering and courage can never be counted or repaid. I felt that day, as I have on so many other days, that I was simply the sum of all those South African patriots who had gone before me. That long and noble line ended and now began again with me. I was pained that I was not able to thank them, and that they were not able to see what their sacrifices had wrought. The policy of apartheid created a deep and lasting wound to my country and my people. All of us will spend many years, if not generations, recovering from that profound hurt. But the decades of oppression and brutality had another unintended effect, and that was that it produced the Oliver Tamboos, the Walter Sisulas, the Chief Luthlis, the Yusuf Dadus, the Bram Fishers, the Robert Sobukwes of our time, men of extraordinary courage. So these are the heroes of South Africa, as you can see. Wisdom and generosity that their like may never be known again. Perhaps it requires such depths of oppression to create such heights of character. My country is rich in the minerals and gems that lie beneath its soil, but I have always known that its richest wealth is its people, finer and truer than the purest diamonds. It is from these comrades in the struggle that I learned the meaning of courage. Time and again, I have seen men and women risk and give their lives for an idea. I have seen men stand up to attacks and torture without breaking, showing a strength and resilience that defies the imagination. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. Even in the grimmest times in prison, when my comrades and I were pushed to our limits, I would see a glimmer of humanity in one of the guards, perhaps just for a second. But it was enough to reassure me and keep me going. Man's goodness is a flame that can be hidden but never extinguished. Now look at these two images. You can see in the first image, a beautiful group of helicopters are flying over the Union buildings in Pretoria. And in the second image, you can see that Nelson Mandela is shaking hands with the generals or the chiefs or the heads of defense forces like the army, the navy, and the air force. Now, you open your book at page number 19 and let us understand the explanation of the first paragraph of that page. Listen to the explanation carefully, and after the explanation you will be given some questions which should be answered by you orally. So read your first paragraph at page number 19 and listen to the explanation. Also write down the meanings of the words that I will be giving you during the explanation. So let's begin. Mandela says that a few moments later, we all lifted, means all the guests, all the people who were present on that inauguration, lifted means raised our eyes in awe. Awe means, you can say, admiration here. You can say a great surprise or respect. So we all lifted our eyes in admiration or surprise, as means because, as a spectacular means what you can say, fantastic, stunning, impressive, or amazing array. Array means you can say grouping or display or arrangement of South African jets, helicopters and troop carriers roared in perfect formation. As you can see in the first image, he's describing the first image over the Union buildings. It was not only a display of pinpoint precision. Pinpoint precision means absolute accuracy. Absolute accuracy means you can see the pinpoint precision of distance between the helicopters, right, and military force. But a demonstration means a show or a presentation of the military's loyalty to democracy, to a new government. New government means the government of the black, headed by Nelson Mandela, that had been freely and fairly elected. Only moments before, the highest generals of the South African Defense Force and police. So he's talking about the scene, the picture that you can see, the image right side on the screen. So only moments before, the highest generals of the South African Defense Force and police, their chests bedecked. You can look at the chests of these generals. Bedecked means decorated, adorned, or awarded, or recognized with ribbons. So you can see their chests are decorated with ribbons and medals from days gone by, saluted me and pledged means assured, guaranteed their loyalty. I was not unmindful, you can say unaware or ignorant. So I was not unaware or ignorant of the fact that not so many years before, they would not have saluted but arrested me. The same generals who are saluting me today, who are giving their assurance, who are giving their guarantee that they will be loyal to the new government, the same officers would have arrested me. Finally, a chevron, you can say a V-shaped display. You can imagine when a group of planes fly in V-shape into the sky, that is called chevron. So finally, a chevron, that means a V-shaped display of Impala jets, left smoke trail of the black, red, green, blue, gold of the new South African flag. So a V-shaped grouping or arrangement of South African jets created South Africa's flag into the sky. So after we have discussed this paragraph, it's time for you to write down the questions. So write down important questions from this paragraph. There are only 2 questions, so write down both the questions. First question is, why was Mandela full of admiration at the spectacular display of country's Air Force? And question number 2, what was the fact Mandela was not unaware of? Now, after we have discussed the first paragraph at page number 19, let us move to the discussion of the second paragraph. Look at the second paragraph at page number 19 of your book. Look at this image. As you can see in this image, Nelson Mandela is putting his hand on his chest, and the officers, the police in uniform, are saluting. And from this scene, it is very, very clear what the scene must be. It is a scene or the occasion on which national anthems were sung on his inauguration day. So let us see what Nelson Mandela is talking about the singing of the national anthem. You look at para number 2 at page number 19 of your book. He says that the day was symbolized, you can say served as a symbol, means that particular day, 10th May 1994, on which he became the first black president of South Africa, served as a symbol for me by the playing of our 2 national anthems. and the vision of whites singing Nakosi Sikelel Afrika. This was the national anthem which was sung by the whites. And the blacks used to sing Die Stem. It was another national anthem sung by the black people, the old anthem of the Republic. But till or before 10th May 1994, the blacks did not like anthem sung by the blacks, and the blacks did not like the national anthem sung by the white. This is what Mandela says at the end of this paragraph. He says that although that day neither group means neither the white nor the black, knew the lyrics of the anthem they once despised. Despised means hated, or in other words you can say regarded with contempt, or other word you can use is detested. They would soon know the words by heart. So both the groups who used to hate or who used to despise each other's national anthem would know their national anthem by heart, will memorize word for word. Now you write down the questions of this paragraph. Question number 1. What were the two national anthems performed on the occasion of Mandela's inauguration? Question number 2. Which word in the paragraph can mean regard somebody or something with loathing? Loathing means hatred or hate, and contempt. So answer these questions orally so that you can improve your spoken English as well. Now let us move. Opening your book at page number 20 and see the images of some of the patriots or South Africa's nationalists carefully. As we have in our country nationalists or patriots like Bhagat Singh, Sukhdev, then Subhash Chandra Bose. Likewise, these people, Oliver Tambo and Walter Sisulu and Chief Luthuli, Yusuf Dadoo, Bram Fischer and Robert Sobukwe, are South Africa's those patriots, those revolutionaries in the eyes of the white rulers who were fighting against this political system, the apartheid, the system which created divide between the black and the white. And these patriots were against the system, who suffered a lot. Look at the images of some more patriots that are given below. So this is Oliver Tambo, and the right side image you can see this is Walter Sisulu, and the other images are, this is the image of Chief Luthuli, and the man with pipe in his mouth is Yusuf Dadoo. So these are some of the patriots, some of the loyalists of South Africa, and we have some more here you can see. So this is the man behind the bars, is Bram Fischer, and this man, Africa for Africans, is Robert Sobukwe. So these people were against apartheid. So Nelson Mandela was not the only patriot, was not the only person who was fighting against this political system, but along with him a number of other loyalists, a number of South Africa's patriots were also fighting against that evil system. Now let us see at page number 19 what Mandela is talking about these patriots. Listen to the explanation of that paragraph carefully. So you see the paragraph and listen to the explanation carefully. So he says that on the day of the inauguration, that means on that particular day when he was becoming the first black president of South Africa, or on the day of swearing in ceremony, I was overwhelmed with a sense of history. Means I was touched with the strong emotional feelings of history. I was left speechless with a sense of history, you can say, in other words. Right. And he says further that in the first decade of the 20th century, a few years after the bitter Anglo-Boer War, let me tell you something about the Anglo-Boer War, what the Anglo-Boer War is. The Anglo-Boer War was fought from 1899 to 1902 between the British Empire and two independent Boer states in South Africa. So far as the reason for this fight between the British Empire and the Boer states in South Africa was the discovery of diamond and gold in Boer states in South Africa. And Britishers had eye on the mines of gold, and therefore this war went on from 1899 to 1902, which was a fiercely fought war between the two groups. So Mandela is talking about that scene. And before my own birth, the white skinned peoples of South Africa patched up their differences. Patched up their differences means they ended their differences, or they became friends again after ending their disagreement, or forgetting their enmity, or forgetting their bad relationship, and erected means created or established, or you can say founded a system of racial domination against the dark-skinned peoples of their own land. The structure Mandela is talking about the background of racial segregation, that is apartheid. So the structure they created formed the basis of one of the harshest means cruelest, most unkind, or the strictest, most inhuman means heartless, merciless societies the world has ever known. Now, in the last decade of the 20th century, that means Mandela is talking about the last decade, that means from 1991 to 2000. So now in the last decade of the 20th century, and my own 8th decade as a man, so Mandela was 80 years old during that time, that system had been overturned. That means the system of apartheid, the system of racial domination had been ended, had been thrown out, had been abolished, or had been destroyed forever, and replaced by one that recognized the rights and freedoms of all peoples, regardless of means no matter, in spite of or irrespective of the color of their skin. So in this paragraph, Nelson Mandela is talking about the patriots of South Africa and about the Boer War. So before we move ahead, write down the questions based on this paragraph. Question number 1. When was the Anglo-Boer War fought? Question number 2. Why did the white rulers in South Africa end their disagreement or patched up? And question number 3. How would Mandela's governance be different from the system set by the white? Now, let us move ahead to next paragraph. Look at these scenes of the Anglo-Boer War, which was fought from 1899 to 1902, as I was explaining, that this war was fought because the Boer republics in South Africa had discovered gold mines, and the British Empire wanted to capture these gold mines. Therefore, this war went on for that period. Now let us see something more about this paragraph. Now look at the second paragraph at page number 20 and listen to the explanation carefully. Mandela writes that that day, here that day refers to the day of South Africa's freedom, had come about means had happened or had occurred. So the day of South Africa's freedom had happened or occurred through the unimaginable means unbelievable, unthinkable, indescribable sacrifices of thousands of my people, that means people of South Africa, people whose suffering and courage can never be counted or repaid. So here Nelson Mandela is talking about the unimaginable or unbelievable sacrifices made by thousands of people of South Africa, which cannot be, counted or repaid in any form. Mandela further says that I felt that day, as I have on so many other days, that I was simply the sum. That means I was simply the total, the entirety of all those African patriots who had gone before me. The long and noble line ended and now began again with me. I was pained means I was saddened. I was, unhappy. I was displeased or disheartened that I was not able to thank them, and that they were not able to see what their sacrifices had wrought. So here sacrifices had wrought means what their sacrifices had, produced. Here Mandela is talking about freedom of South Africa, what change it has caused to happen, or what it has created. So in other words, Nelson Mandela is talking about the sacrifices, the suffering, the problems, the challenges that were faced by thousands and thousands of people of South Africa for the freedom of the country. Now, write down important questions based on this paragraph before we move ahead. Question number 1. How did South Africa's freedom become possible? Question number 2. What did Mandela say who he was? Question number 3. Why was Mandela saddened? Now, let us discuss the last paragraph at page number 20, that is the policy of apartheid. Look at this image and let us understand what the policy of apartheid might have caused, what damage this policy of racial segregation might have brought to this country. As you can see in this image, the area of the ocean beach is reserved for the white. That means even if you are from that particular country, but if you are a black, you will not be allowed to visit this. The second image shows this lift is for Europeans only. So if you have to climb or ascend hundreds of steps in a building, then you will have to go only through the stairs. You will not be allowed to use the lifts also. So what kind of feeling will take place in any common human's mind? Let us take a few more images so that we can understand how dangerous, how harmful, how detrimental was this policy for South Africa. Have a look at the next image. Now look at the first image in this frame. If you are going to a park or any place where you have to sit, and on the wooden frame it's written whites only, that means you are committing a crime if you are sitting on even such recreational places. In the second part of this image, you try to read what is written. The first point says, with the enactment of Apartheid Laws in 1948, racial discrimination was institutionalized. So it is clear that in 1948, the white rulers made a law according to which racial discrimination was made, the system. And in 1940, the Population Registration Act required that all South Africans be racially classified into one of the three categories. These three categories were white, black means African, or colored. Colored refer to people of mixed descent. And you can say the colored category included major subgroups of Indians, Pakistanis, and people of other, countries from this area. So, in a way, you can say the entire society was divided into classes, and the white rulers consider themselves superior to these people. Now, let us see the explanation of this paragraph. Look at page number 20 of your book, and let us understand what this paragraph tells us. So it says, the policy of apartheid created a deep and lasting wound. Wound means damage or gap or split in my country and my people. All of us will spend many years, if not generations, recovering from that profound hurt. This profound hurt again refers to the policy of apartheid, and it will mean enormous or severe or serious damage. But the decades of oppression and brutality means unjust treatment, cruelty, harassment, or tyranny, had another unintended, that means unintentional or accidental, other word you can use for unintentional is inadvertent effect, and that was that it produced the Oliver Tamboos, the Walter Sisulas, the Chief Luthelis, the Yusuf Dadoos, the Bram Fishers, the Robert Sobukwe's of our time. Men of such extraordinary, that means great, outstanding, remarkable courage, wisdom, and generosity. Generosity, that means people of self-sacrifice or unselfishness or goodness, that their like means patriots or loyalists like them may never be known again. Perhaps it requires such depths of oppression, that means perhaps or maybe it requires such harsh treatment or extreme or unspeakable cruelty, racial or white suppression, to create such heights of character, means to create such strong and formidable personality like the South African patriots. My country is rich in the minerals and gems that lie within its soil, but I have always known that its greatest wealth is its people, finer and truer than the purest diamonds. So, in this paragraph, Mandela is talking about the damage caused by the policy of apartheid and how this policy of apartheid unintentionally or inadvertently or accidentally created national patriots or people like Oliver Tambo or Walter Sisulu or Chief Luthelis. You can see the definite article has been used before each name. So when a definite article is used before a proper noun, it becomes a group or a group of common noun. So here the Oliver Tamboos means patriots like Oliver Tamboos. The Walter Sisulu means patriots like Walter Sisulu. Now, after we have discussed this paragraph, write down the questions and answer them orally. Question number 1. What damage did the policy of apartheid cause? Question number 2. What was the unintentional effect of the policy of apartheid on South Africa? And question number 3. Who or what, according to Mandela, is the greatest wealth? Now, let us move. Now, look at the second paragraph at page number 21. In this paragraph, Nelson Mandela writes that it is from these comrades. The word comrade means friends or companions, or you can say fellow fighters. Here he is talking about fellow fighters or patriots like Oliver Tambo, Walter Sisulu, Chief Luthuli, Yusuf Dadu, Bram Fisher, Robert Sobukwe. So Mandela is talking about these patriots of South Africa, in which he says that it is from these companions in the struggle that I learned the meaning of courage. So he's saying that I learned the meaning of courage from these patriots. And what is the meaning of courage? According to Nelson Mandela, let us see. In the next line, he says that time and again means sometimes. I have quite often. I have seen men and women risk and give. Here, risk and give means sacrifice or give up or lay down. You can write these words because it will help you a lot in writing your answers. So I have seen men risk their lives for an idea. I have seen men stand up to. So here the phrase stand up to means I have seen the men suffer or endure, or in simple language you can say bear, B-E-A-R, bear or tolerate or undergo, experience attacks and torture without breaking, showing a strength and resilience that defies the imagination. So I have seen people sacrificing their lives for an idea or, experience or undergo attacks and torture without surrendering, without breaking, showing strength that cannot be imagined. In other words, you can say he's saying that a great ability, almost unimaginable strength to remain unchanged by suffering and not losing hope, goodness or courage. In the last part of this paragraph, Mandela writes that I learned that courage was not the absence of, fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers. Conquers means defeats that courage, overcomes that courage, triumphs over that courage, that fear. So, this is what he says in this paragraph. Now, listen to the questions, write down these questions on your notebook and answer them orally. The first question is, who does comrades refer to? Means, to which people does Nelson Mandela use this word comrade for? Second question is, what is courage according to Nelson Mandela? Third question is, who is a brave man according to Nelson Mandela? Now, look at the next paragraph at page number 21. In this paragraph, Mandela says, no one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his, religion. People must learn to hate. And if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. What he means to say, that when a man is born, right, so he doesn't know that the man with, black color or white color are different people. So he's taught to hate. A man with white skin is taught to hate a man of black skin. So if a man can be taught to hate, so he can love, he can learn to love also, because so far as love is concerned, it comes to human heart more naturally than hatred. Here, opposite word can be used like hatred, dislike, bad feeling, ill will, ill feeling. Then in other sentences of the same paragraph, he says that even in the grimmest times, here grimmest time means depressing or hopeless or bleak moments. In prison, so when Nelson Mandela was in prison, we know that he spent 30 years in prison. So when he was in prison, my comrades, means the fellow fighters he referred, companions or associates, and I were pushed to our limits. Here, pushed to the last point in our ability to bear pain or mistreated or torture to the extent they could not control themselves. So what does it mean? That even when we were tortured a lot to the extent that we could not tolerate, even then I would see a glimmer of humanity, a faint indication of mercy, sympathy, kindness in one of the guards, who were guarding the prison, and perhaps just for a second, even for just for a second. But even that glimmer of humanity gave me enough strength to reassure, to assure, it encouraged me, it motivated me. And I kept on fighting and fighting, because he says, the last line of this paragraph is very beautiful. He says that man's goodness is a flame that can be hidden but never extinguished, never ended, never destroyed, never taken away. So Mandela says that a man's goodness cannot be destroyed. So however the white rulers try to torture me, but the guards who were there in the prison showed a glimmer of humanity, and that glimmer of humanity, that kindness, that sympathy was enough for me to continue my struggle against that evil political system, apartheid. Now, write down the questions and answer these questions orally. First question is, of the two feelings, hate and love, what comes to human heart more naturally? Question number 2. What does the expression, my comrades and I were pushed to our limits mean? And question number 3 is, what does Mandela say about man's goodness? So before we move to the next part of this chapter, answer all these questions. And let us move to the other paragraphs of this. Now, look at this image of Nelson Mandela. We can see that he is holding a loudspeaker, small loudspeaker in his hand, and a large number of people have assembled, have gathered, and look at the faces of those people. They are very, very attentive. They are very, very careful. They are trying to listen what he is trying to say, what message he is trying to convey, what advice, what policies of the white he is talking about. So it's very easy to understand that Mandela is and making people aware about their rights, and he is trying to convey a message to these people that so far as the land of South Africa is concerned, it is not the land of the whites, it is not the land of the Europeans, it is not the land of the Americans who have been ruling their country for such a long time. It is their motherland, it is their land, it is their country. So they should fight against injustice. They should fight against the system of apartheid. Now, you look at the last paragraph of page number 21 and listen to the explanation carefully. It will be easy for you to understand. So, in the last paragraph at page number 21, Mandela says that in life, every man has twin obligations. Twin means two. Obligations means duties or responsibilities or commitments that we have to fulfill. So a man has two obligations. What are the two obligations? obligations towards his family, to his parents, to his wife, to his children. So this is obligation number one. And another obligation he has is to his people, to his community, to his country. So according to him, every man has two obligations. First is towards his family and the second is towards his nation. And in a civil and humane, means any society that is civil society. Humane, that means the word humane means humanitarian or good society, benevolent society. Each man is able to fulfill those obligations, those duties or responsibilities according to his own inclinations. The word inclinations means preferences or tendency, or in simple word you can say feeling. So every man tries to fulfill those obligations according to his abilities, according to his capacities, according to his preferences. And but in country like South Africa, it was almost impossible for a man of my birth, that means for a black man and color, to fulfill both of those obligations. In South Africa, a man of color, that means a black man, a man of black skin, who attempted to live as a human being, was punished and isolated. So anyone who is trying to live like a human being, as he's saying, he was punished and isolated. In South Africa, a man who tried to fulfill his duty to his people and was inevitably ripped apart, means mercilessly separated or broken away, you can say, in other words. So anyone who is trying to fulfill his obligations towards family and country were mercilessly separated or broken away from his family and his home, and was forced to live a life apart, a twilight existence of secrecy and rebellion. This phrase, a life of secrecy, a twilight existence of secrecy and rebellion, means a half secret life. You can say a life lived in jungle or without light. In other words, you can say living as a nameless or anonymous person whom nobody knows, or like a protester, insurgent, or revolutionary. So he was having only two options: either he becomes nameless, or he will have to become a terrorist in the eye of the law. If anybody tried to fulfill the two obligations towards his family and his country. I did not in the beginning, in the last part of the paragraph, Mandela says that I did not in the beginning choose to place my people above my family, but in attempting to serve my people, I found that I was prevented from fulfilling my obligations as a son, a brother, a father, and a husband. So he said that when I was trying to fulfill those two obligations, then I found that I was prevented, I was stopped from fulfilling my duties, my commitments, my obligations to my family and my country. So I hope this paragraph is also clear. Now listen to the questions based on this paragraph. The first question is, according to Nelson Mandela, what are the two obligations every man has? Question number 2. What challenges did Nelson Mandela and people like him had to face in discharging their obligations in South Africa? Question number 3. What did Nelson Mandela realize while trying to serve the people of his country? And after you answer these questions, let us move to next paragraph. Now, look at this image of Nelson Mandela. In this image, you can see he is in uniform of a lawyer, or you can say an advocate. You should be happy to know that Nelson Mandela completed his law. Look at this image of Nelson Mandela. In this image, Nelson Mandela is in get-up of a lawyer or an advocate. Actually, he had studied law at a university and wanted to practice law in Johannesburg. But before practicing as a lawyer, he became actively involved in fighting against the political system, apartheid, and started mobilizing people against that evil political system. Now, look at the second paragraph at page number 22 and let us understand the meaning of that paragraph. So, in this paragraph, Mandela says that I was not born with a hunger to be free. I was born free. What does this line mean? He means to say that I do not have the desire to be free because he thought that he was born free. Actually, every patriot, every educated, every awakened nationalist thinks that he is born free. And when he finds that he is in chains, that means he is prevented from doing his duties, from fulfilling his responsibilities, from fulfilling his obligations, then he realizes that he has to fight against that system. So Mandela also thought that he was not born with a hunger to be free, but he was born free actually. How? How did he think that he was born free? He says that free in every way that I could know. Free to run in the fields near my mother's hut, free to swim in the clear stream that ran through my village, free to roast mealies. Roast mealies here means cook maize, or you must have seen Indian corn, or in Hindi we say makai or bhutta. So he says that I was free in every way, and I was free to to roast mealies under the stars and ride the broad backs of slow moving bulls. Means in villages you must have seen people riding bulls, or you can say buffaloes. So he says I was free in every way as long as I obeyed my father and abided by means followed or obeyed the customs of my tribe. I was not troubled by the laws of man or God. So as a child, he was not stopped from enjoying these small freedoms. Freedom like running in the fields, or swimming in river or pond, or roasting mealies. So he was not stopped. So he says that as long as I obeyed the customs of my tribe, so there was no problem. I was not troubled by the laws of man or even by God. Now, listen to two questions from this paragraph and answer them. In what ways was Nelson Mandela born free? Question number 2. To what extent was Nelson Mandela not upset or disturbed by the laws of man or God? Now let us move to the... Now look at this image of Nelson Mandela. In this image we can see Nelson Mandela marching or leading a procession of anti-apartheid movement. So in the previous image we saw that Nelson Mandela was speaking on loudspeaker and trying to mobilize people against the evil political system that was apartheid or racial discrimination. And as he started mobilizing people started raising their voices, airing their opinions, violating the rules, as it happened here in India when Mahatma Gandhi began civil disobedience. So people started breaking laws, breaking rules. And there in South Africa also, when Nelson Mandela started asking people to come up and speak against the white rule, so people started taking out processions and following Nelson Mandela, breaking the laws and rules. And slowly and gradually, this movement called anti-apartheid started gaining momentum. Then what happened? Let us see. In the third paragraph at page number 22. So see, look at the third paragraph at page number 22. In this paragraph, Nelson Mandela says that it was only when I began to learn that my boyhood freedom was an illusion. He says that I was free to run in the field, to roast mealies, to ride the broad backs of the bulls. So these were small freedoms. And he was not troubled when he was not, disturbed when he was enjoying those little freedoms. But it was only when I began to learn that my boyhood freedom was an illusion. It was false belief. It was false freedom, or it was a false idea or misconception that I was free, or I was in a mistaken impression. Then when I discovered, means when I found out, when I learned, when I, realized that as a young man, that my freedom had already been taken away from me, that I began to hunger for it. Means I began to want it more. At first, as a student, I wanted freedom only for myself. The transitory freedom means temporary freedom, momentary freedom, or short-lived liberty. What are these temporary freedom? Freedom to be able, to stay out at night, read what I pleased, and go where I chose. So these were transitory freedoms. Later, as a young man in Johannesburg, I yearned for. The word yearn for means I wanted, I desired, I hungered after the basic and honorable freedom of achieving my potential, of earning my keep, of marrying and having a family. The freedom not to be obstructed, not to be stopped or hindered or prohibited in a lawful manner. So when Nelson Mandela, in the previous paragraph, we saw that when he was a child, he thought that he was free. But later on, he realized that he was not free. And then when he realized that he was not free, then he started yearning for, he started, desiring, wanting more and more freedom. So now, answer a few questions based on this paragraph. The first question is, when did Nelson Mandela begin to long for freedom? Question number 2. At first, what did Nelson Mandela want freedom for? Question number 3. As a young man, what did Nelson Mandela hanker after? Hanker after means want, yearn for freedom. And now, let us move to the last paragraph at page number 22. Now, look at this image of Nelson Mandela and you can understand that he is behind bars. Why was he behind bars, and that also for 30 years, is easy for anyone to understand. It's very easy to understand that so far as apartheid was concerned, it was a political system adopted by the white rulers. And Nelson Mandela had started raising his voice against that system. So as he was raising his voice and mobilizing people, encouraging them to speak up against the system, so what might have been the end result? So the end result was that he was arrested and put behind bars. So he was imprisoned, he was jailed, and not for 1 year, not for 2 years, not for 3 years, but for 3 decades, for 30 years. And you can imagine a man who spent 30 years in prison, in jail, is not a simple man. He's a real fighter. He's a real nationalist. He's a real, real challenger. Now, look at the last paragraph at page number 22 and listen to the explanation of that paragraph carefully. So in this paragraph, we see that Nelson Mandela realized that he was not free. Then what happened? So in the previous paragraph, we saw that Nelson Mandela was stopped. He was prevented from enjoying his freedom as a student, his freedom as a husband, his freedom as a son. Then his mind started widening. Now look at the paragraph. In this paragraph, he says, "But then I slowly saw that not only was I not free, but my brothers and sisters were not free. I saw that it was not just my freedom that was curtailed." The word curtailed means restricted or limited or inhibited. But the freedom of everyone who looked like me, looked like I did. That is when I joined the African National Congress, and that is when the hunger for my own freedom became the greater hunger for the freedom of my people. It was the desire for the freedom of my people to live their lives with dignity. Dignity means self-esteem or self-respect or poise or pride and self-respect. That animated me, that means encouraged me, that gave me inspiration, encouragement, or renewed my energy, my life, and transformed means changed, made, converted a frightened young man into a bold one. That drove a law-abiding attorney, here law-abiding attorney, as we know that Nelson Mandela was a lawyer, so he using this attorney word for that word. So a law-abiding, that means a decent, just, respectable lawyer. As I told you that you should know that Mandela began studying law at a university where he was the only black African student, and there also at the university also where he was studying law, he had to face racism. So there was a kind of protest, rebellion in his mind. This is what he is explaining. So to become a criminal, now look at this sentence once again, that turned a family-loving husband into a man without a home, that forced a life-loving man to live like a monk. Last part of this paragraph is really very beautiful. He says that I am no more virtuous or self-sacrificing, virtuous means self-sacrificing, than the next man. But I found that I could not even enjoy the poor unlimited freedoms I was allowed when I knew that people were not free. And then at the end of the paragraph, he gives a very beautiful reason why he started raising his voice against the bad rule. He says that freedom is indivisible. The chains on any one of my people were the chains on all of them, and the chains on my people were the chains on me. So the freedom is indivisible. Freedom cannot be divided. So if my people are not free, how can I be free? And when I am not free, then no nation, the entire nation is not free. So he is talking about this challenge, what he had to face, how he was stopped at each and every step. Now, listen to the questions based on this paragraph and answer them. When did Nelson Mandela join the African National Congress? Question number 2. What change did the freedom for hunger bring in Nelson Mandela? Means when Nelson Mandela started yearning for freedom, desiring for freedom, then what change did it bring in him? Third question. How does Nelson Mandela compare himself with any other man? And the last question is, what is Nelson Mandela's opinion about freedom? You can quote the line, freedom is indivisible. I hope it's easy for you to listen and answer the questions. Now let us move to the last paragraph of this chapter and sum up this chapter. Now look at this image. In this image you can see that a man is writing on a big wall in big letters, "Free Mandela." So this love, this affection, this emotion towards Mandela was enough for him to spend even 30 years in prison. This is what Nelson Mandela was. And now look at the last paragraph of this chapter. In the last paragraph of this chapter, Mandela writes that I knew that the oppressor in other words you can say tormentor or persecutor or torturer, here it refers to the white rulers, must be liberated as surely as the oppressed. So he says that a person who is behind the bars is not only, tortured or oppressed. A man who tortures, a man who takes others' freedom also needs to be freed. He is also a prisoner. So what kind of prisoner he is? Let us understand in the opinion of Mandela. He says, a man who takes away another man's freedom is a prisoner of hatred. He is locked behind the bars of prejudice. Prejudice means discrimination or intolerance and narrow-mindedness. He says, I am not truly free if I am taking away someone else's freedom, just as surely as I am not free when my freedom is taken from me. And therefore, the oppressed and the oppressor alike are robbed of their humanity. That means both of them are deprived of, stripped of, or divested of humanity. A man who is behind the bars or a man who is in jail is deprived of his liberty because his freedom has been taken away. But so far as an oppressor, a torturer, a tormentor is concerned, he is a prisoner of hatred, of prejudice, of narrow-mindedness, of discrimination, of intolerance, and therefore both of them need to be freed. Because a man who takes another man's freedom is also not free, and therefore both need to be freed. Now, answer some questions based on this paragraph. The first question is, according to Nelson Mandela, what is an oppressor a prisoner of, and why? And question number 2, why did Nelson Mandela think that both the oppressor and the oppressed need to be freed? And look at the last image of Nelson Mandela. So in this image you can see Nelson Mandela's lifespan has been mentioned. As we discussed at the beginning of the chapter, Nelson Mandela was born in the year 1918 and he died in the year 2013. A hero, a champion, a Mahatma who showed the way how to fight against injustice in his country. So he was a great patriot.